On this Saturday night, a Toronto festival turns violent.
3-4 people was down. They hit them on the head.
Several people are sent to hospital when demonstrators crash the party. The politics believed to be behind the attack. Extreme weather turns a Scout Jamboree into a nightmare for thousands of teens.
But it sounds like the problems with this go way beyond the heat.
The international event that's put kids at risk. Practicality or politics?
It feels like there's a lot more at play there.
The Alberta government faces backlash over a decision to pause green energy projects. And out from the shadows, an Iranian immigrant to Canada shows her true colors.
Global National with Farah Nasser. Reporting tonight, Colleen Christie.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. Police from across Toronto converged on a park in the city's West End, trying to put an end to violence at a community festival today that injured several people, sending 9 to hospital. A large contingent of officers was deployed to a park on Toronto's west side where the local Eritrean community was hosting a festival. Organizers say a group of up to 200 people showed up and began disrupting the event. Tents were smashed and set on fire, and police say one person was stabbed. One witness believes the others to be from Ethiopia's Tigray region.
They think they say like political issue or whatever, but they are not from Eritrea. They are not. We are Eritrea. They are not from Ethiopia.
Medics also treated patients at the scene. Until last November, Eritrea and Ethiopia waged a 2-year war against the region's ruling party in the Tigray region, during which more than 2 million people were forced to flee their homes. There's finally labor peace at the ports on Canada's west coast, and now growing calls to make sure such disruptions don't happen again. Members of the International Longshore Workers Union voted almost 75% in favor of a 4-year deal. That vote brings an end to weeks of uncertainty at ports across BC. The Association of Canadian Manufacturers and Exporters says disruptions at the ports cost an estimated $500 million in trade each day. They want the ports to be declared critical infrastructure. The Labour and Transport Minister welcomed the news, but said, quote, "We don't want to be back here again." Much of BC remains under smoky skies this weekend as wildfires continue to burn right across the province. These images, captured by the International Space Station, began with snow-capped mountains that soon became blanketed by smoke. A special air quality statement is in effect for much of the BC interior, with temperatures expected to stay above average this weekend. Despite rain in the forecast for early next week, more heat is expected through the month. South Korea is baking under intense heat. It's where thousands of teenagers from more than 170 countries, including Canada, have gathered for the 25th World Scouts Jamboree. The 10-day education event was supposed to be the trip of a lifetime, but for many, extreme summer heat has ruined their adventure. Jamie Mauracher explains why officials have chosen not to cancel the event.
This flat, treeless landscape, more than 250 kilometers outside of South Korea, is supposed to be a temporary home for more than 40,000 participants at the World Scouts Jamboree. Most are teens, 14 to 17, but with little access to shade or cooling during one of the hottest summers the country has seen in years, the 35-degree weather is taking a toll.
Oh, that's bad. Woke up absolutely dripping in sweat.
The UK, the largest contingent of more than 4,000 scouts, moved its delegates to a hotel after more than 100 participants were hospitalized with heat-related illnesses during the opening ceremony.
Each scouting movement is an independent organisation, and they have duty of care for their children, so they will decide what is best for their children.
Since there have been more than 400 reports of people falling sick, including 9 Canadians. A statement from Scouts Canada says the 235 youth expressed a desire to remain at the Jamboree. Given infrastructure improvements and participant feedback, the contingent will remain on site. But delegates from the U.S. are opting to walk away. Kristen Sayers says her 17-year-old son spent more than $6,000 American to attend the Jamboree she is now calling a nightmare.
But it sounds like the problems with this go way beyond the heat. There's not enough food, there's not enough water.
The South Korean government is promising more water trucks, air-conditioned spaces, and medics. Officials also rolled out tour programs, shuttling scouts into Seoul and other cities, and have canceled the more physically intensive events. Still, they have no plans of shutting down.
Regarding the operation plan of the Jamboree, the representatives of each country held a meeting today and decided to continue the event.
But with a week left and more rain and 35-degree heat in the forecast, Scouts' motto, "Be prepared," may mean for further disappointment. Jamie Mauracher, Global News.
It's the middle of summer, but a freak storm in southern Germany has residents seeing snow and hail. A heavy hailstorm hit the city of Reutlingen east of Munich on Friday. It looked like winter in some areas, with hailstone accumulations of up to 30 centimeters. Other areas saw heavy flooding. Thunderstorms are forecast for the next 2 days. A surprise announcement from the Alberta government this week is drawing criticism from across the country. The province is pausing the development of any new renewable energy projects for the next 6 months. The Alberta government says it's in response to concerns from rural landowners. But as Heather Yourex-West explains, critics believe there are political motivations at play.
With its wide open, sunny blue skies and some of the gustiest winds on the continent, Alberta has been an attractive place for renewable energy investment. And up until recently, the solar and wind energy industry here was booming.
Alberta certainly was leading the way. We've seen a massive expansion, excellent wind and solar resources from a kind of climate perspective, but also a great market structure.
It's why an announcement by Alberta's government took so many by surprise. Effective immediately and for the next 6 months, any approvals of large renewable energy projects will be put on pause.
We wanted to start immediately on some significant issues that we've heard that have been raised by industry, municipalities, and individual landowners.
The government, elected on the strength of its support in rural Alberta, was quickly praised for the decision by rural leaders.
I must say it's a bold and courageous step, taking high-quality agricultural land out of production and actually using it as a solar industrial renewable operation is at the best use of land.
But clean energy supporters are puzzled at best. The Pembina Institute estimates the pause will put 91 projects worth $25 billion at risk.
A moratorium, though, right as you have an absolutely booming industry, that doesn't make any sense. And I don't think that the desire to engage people in a conversation warrants a response that puts the entire piece at risk. It feels like there's a lot more at play there.
Particularly since there's been no talk of pausing oil and gas development in the wake of thousands of orphaned and abandoned wells. With the provincial government frequently at odds with Ottawa over climate policy, politics appear to have played a role in blowing this decision in. Heather Yourex-West, Global News, Calgary.
A day after Ukraine said it carried out a drone attack on a Russian Navy ship off Crimea, there was another strike on a tanker in the same region. A Ukrainian intelligence source for Reuters released this video showing a drone sailing toward the ship before impact. The source says it was transporting fuel for the Russian military. Russian officials say the tanker was damaged, but no one was hurt. Police in Pakistan have arrested former Prime Minister Imran Khan after a court sentenced him to 3 years in prison. He's been found guilty of illegally selling state gifts during his tenure as Prime Minister from 2018 to 2022. Khan's party has condemned the ruling, saying it will challenge the decision in a superior court. Since his ousting from power in a no-confidence vote in Parliament in April of last year, Khan has been slapped with more than 150 legal cases. Coming up, a drying trend, how younger generations are moving away from alcohol consumption. A chaotic scene in New York City Friday after a PlayStation 5 giveaway caused a mob scene. The event was planned by popular internet personality Kai Cenat, but things got out of control and the giveaway never happened. Massive crowds gathered around Union Square, throwing supplies, injuring officers, and destroying police cars. Police made at least 65 arrests, including Cenat. Well, summer is prime patio season where many enjoy cold beverages, often of the alcoholic variety. But a new trend suggests younger generations have a different idea of what constitutes a good time, taking alcohol out of the mix. In a story that aired on the new reality, Sophie Louis looks at the sober curiosity movement.
At a glance, this looks like any other night out. People are mingling. The DJ is bumping. The bartender is mixing. But there's one key thing missing: alcohol. There's not a drop of it here.
We like to create an atmosphere where everybody is sober.
Elizabeth Gascoigne is the host of this booze-free bar night. She came up with the idea a year ago after deciding to go sober. Like many people, she found herself drinking too much during the pandemic, leaving her with something she calls hangxiety.
Anxiety, in my experience, is the feeling that you get the next day after drinking, even if you're only drinking a glass or two of wine. Just this residual anxiety of, what did I say the night before? What did I do? Did I embarrass myself?
It's a question her generation is posing. A recent study found they drink 20% less than millennials, who in turn are drinking less than Gen Xers and baby boomers. And it's not necessarily because they have addiction issues. They're just curious. Sober curious.
Gen Z, I think they're realizing that maybe the consequences of alcohol are not actually worth the mental health effects.
Here in Canada, the sober curiosity movement is definitely brewing. Beer and wine sales are at an all-time low, except when it comes to non-alcoholic products. And at the Drive Canteen in Vancouver, they can attest to that.
This pale ale, you could pour it blind and people wouldn't know that it's a de-alcoholized product. It's so good.
Owner Doug Stephen has carefully curated his convenience store with a focus on fun, candy and snacks, jerseys and sneakers, and their top seller, beer, wine, and spirits without the booze.
As long as it's delicious, that's the biggest thing for us. We just keep seeing more and more people coming through who want to kind of shift how they view alcohol.
It's clear there is a thirst for something different. And Fiona Heifer wants to quench that thirst.
This should be more on the dry of the spectrum.
She's the CEO of Sensorium, a BC-based online marketplace for alcohol-free beverages. Tonight, she's giving people a taste of what's out there.
The big takeaway I hope people get from tonight is really an expanded definition about sobriety. You could have a mindful relationship to alcohol that lets you have a drink once in a while, or you realize that you don't like it at all and you decide to leave it without having this rock bottom story.
And the sober curious are eager to sample.
I think there's something about getting something that tastes like an adult beverage. That's what I loved about it.
Sophie Louis, Global News, Vancouver.
Ahead, incredible discovery: the massive aquatic dinosaur fossil found in Manitoba. Mississauga's Malcolm Spence gives Canada the win at the 2023 Hlinka Gretzky Cup. Canada defeated host team Czechia 3-2 in overtime to win the World Under-18 tournament. It's the 24th time Canada has taken home gold. An entirely different kind of win in Regina. Competitive eater Joey Chestnut set a new record eating 304 mini donuts in 8 minutes at the Queen City exhibition. The event raised $72,000 for the local food bank. The win is no big surprise. Chestnut has won New York's hot dog eating contest 16 times. Researchers in Manitoba have made an exciting discovery. They have found what appears to be a complete fossilized skeleton of a mosasaur, the so-called T-Rex of the deep. Joining us is Adolfo Kutara, who is the executive director of the Canadian Fossil Discovery Centre in Morden, Manitoba. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Well, this must be a huge thrill. How did you find these fossils?
Well, this is the result of the last few years of improvements that we made in the center. And it was found by Jerry Peters, who's our field technician. He was scratching, cleaning the surface in our property in the Manitoba Escarpment with a new excavator that we acquired last year. He's very knowledgeable and just he felt that just scratching the surface that there was something there, just the one bone and one fossil just showing up from the surface, and just stopped immediately the tractor and started to dig with hand tools. And just he realized at the time that it was not just an isolated bone, it was just showing up one vertebra, then another vertebra. And now even we are starting to find teeth and skull elements, so it's very exciting to be able to find this mosasaur.
So do you think the skeleton is complete?
Yes, in paleontology we talk always a complete skeleton. When we find 70, 75, 80% of the skeleton, it's almost impossible to find 100%. There is always some element missing, right? So right now we are about half of the skeleton, and we are pretty sure that this is going to be very, very complete.
Now, most of us are familiar with the fossil-rich Drumheller, Alberta, but you have your own very special window back in time right there in southern Manitoba. Tell us about that. This used to be a seabed.
Exactly. So 83 million years ago, there were an interior seaway, like a channel of ocean communicating the Gulf of Mexico with the Arctic Ocean and the Hudson Bay. So at that time, Manitoba was completely under this interior warm swallow sea, and Drumheller in Alberta, they were in the west coast of this interior seaway. So that's why they find dinosaurs, because they were land animals, and we only find marine animals.
What else might you find buried underneath the earth?
Well, we have Bruce. This is the biggest mosasaur skeleton in display in the world. And next year, because this is by chance, we will acquire a piece of land that is the continuation of where Bruce was found in the 70s. So we have high expectations about that portion of land, because all the animals, all the specimens we found there are huge. And so we have really big expectations about what we can find this year and next year.
Adolfo Kutara, Executive Director of the Canadian Fossil Discovery Centre in Morden, Manitoba. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, an Iranian immigrant to Canada defies fear for pride. North America's biggest Caribbean carnival has returned to Toronto. Thousands came out for the 56th annual Grand Parade Saturday, decked in colorful and sparkly and even feathered costumes. It's a summer staple in the city, celebrating Caribbean culture and history that also attracts millions of visitors from right around the world. It's Pride weekend in Vancouver, and the celebration has special meaning for one resident. She fled her home in Iran, fearing she might be killed for who she is. Now that she's in Canada, she's determined to share her Iranian pride. Negar Mojtahedi explains.
Shaya Goldus's pride is not a secret anymore. The pride flag and her native flag of Iran united. A moment unthinkable for the transgendered woman.
It's so important people see we are here, we are living, we are Iranian LGBTQ.
Behind the cheers and celebrations, a darker truth.
I had a lot of problem in Iran as a trans woman, harassment and discrimination. But you can't go to police and you can't tell to police because it's your fault, because you are different.
Shaya had gender affirmation surgery in 2012 and feared for her life in Iran. Now she's seeking refuge in Vancouver.
Iran was unsafe for me and is unsafe for the people like me.
In September, 2 Iranian women sentenced to death. Amnesty International says it was due to their perceived sexual orientation and gender identity, and defending LGBTQ+ rights on social media. The United Nations is demanding their release.
Homosexuality is punishable by death in Iran.
Arsham Parsi is a queer activist exiled for love.
The only disagreement between clergies is the method of killing. Some believe that they have to be stoned to death, some believe that they have to be hanged, and some believe that they have to be cut in half by a sword.
He's an Iranian gay man living in Canada.
I decided to do something in order to stop these kind of inhuman and barbaric actions.
Arsham founded the International Railroad for Queer Refugees and the Marjan Foundation, helping the queer community of the Middle East.
These are the pictures the rainbow kids in Iran sent to us.
Shaya is now doing her part to help people back home, with Iran's rainbow children turning to her on social media for support.
They hold the rainbow flag or transgender flag at the street in Iran. We are trying for freedom here in Iran too. Look at my skin. I think they are so brave.
Bravery on the front lines of a battle for basic human rights. Negar Moshahedi, Global News.
And that is Global National for this Saturday night. I'm Colleen Christie. Tonight's Your Canada is 2 fawns taking a break from the sun in Maple Ridge, BC. Thanks for watching. Hope you'll join us again tomorrow. Have a great night.